Now then guys, welcome back to another video on the Mini, finally. Now, I know it's been a while since I did a Mini video, good reason for it. Unfortunately, most of my time has been taken up working on my van, which is a rusty piece of shit, but it's part of the family, I gotta keep fixing it. So anyway, next step on the Mini is the penultimate stage, which is the wiring. So I'll just flip this camera around and I'll show you all the hardware that I need to fit. Okay, so I've got to lay down here with all the bits I've purchased to do the wiring on the Mini. So what I've got here is the existing wire loom taken off the Nissan Micra. So I labelled all the plugs so I can reuse them. So I'll be basically stripping this back and just using the plugs for the sensors, injectors, spark plugs, coils, stuff like that. I've gone with the Haltech Elite 550 ECU, which I'm showing here. This is like their basic model version. Suitable for 4 cylinders, I believe, which obviously this Micra is. These are why I picked that one, save a bit of money. So I've opted for here, which is my O2 wideband controller. So I bought this because I thought this is a really neat idea. So obviously with the wideband O2 sensor, I can more accurately detect the air to fuel ratio of the engine, but accompanied with the ECU, it can use that to self-learn. So obviously with a certain targeted air to fuel ratio, and if that perhaps is out, it'll record a correction factor, which I then can use to upgrade the maps on the car. So essentially making the car self-tuning almost. I've also got a Haltech gauge here, so this will allow me to illustrate in particular parameters I want to coming from the ECU, such as air to fuel ratio again, engine speed, engine temperature, anything I want. So it's configurable, so rather than having a cluttered dash full of a multitude of different dials showing different things, I've opted for a nice clean look, having a single gauge that I can change to show what I want when I particularly want it. And also here I've got the Haltech premium harness here with fuse box. Okay, so I've got all this to fit. So it was a bit intimidating. I've never really done as much wiring on a vehicle as this, but I'll give it a crack. I think my first step is, before I even try to do any of the wiring, is just to find suitable locations for all these components. So the gauges, the wideband controller, where I'm going to mount that in the engine bay, where I'm going to mount that in the cabin, where I'm going to mount the fuse box in the cabin. So I think that's what I shall be tackling first. Okay, so I've started clearing space on the dash for where I want to mount the ECU and the fuse box. So this is an 84 Mini, so those who know, 84 Minis have the offset instrument cluster here. Personally, I prefer the center ones of the center dials of some of the older Minis. I think it looks way better. So I bought a set of center dials quite cheaply, because all I really want is the casing, and I've removed the standard clocks, the offset clocks, they're down here now, out the way, and I've just mocked up the position for this center dial. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do is, as you can see, I've removed one of the gauges here. I think it was an old 10 gauge. It was broken anyway. All the gauges I think are beyond repair, so I'll be replacing them all. I think I might buy a digital speedo, so I can hook it up to the Micra gearbox, but that's a later job. So I've preliminarily put the center gauge in here, so I just need to cut some holes and mount it to the bulkhead here. What I think I'm going to do, I'm going to use this available aperture here to mount the Haltech digital gauge. I think it'll look quite neat. Rather than, my initial idea is maybe to put it here on a bracket, but I think this would be a much neater solution. Okay, so I'm gonna get cracking, get this mounted so it's fixed. You can see at the moment it's just placed in place and held up with a tape measure. So I'll get this fixed in place, and then I shall mount my Haltech gauge to this, and we'll have a look what it looks like. Okay, so I've just done my holes to mount the centre dials in the Mini, so that's all done, ready to go. So I've got the centre dials back on my dash here. Like I said a minute ago, I'm going to use this aperture, what previously was an old pressure gauge. I'm using it to fit my my Haltech gauge. So I've unpackaged my Haltech gauge here. So luckily enough, this is a 52mm gauge, and the gauge, the oil pressure gauge that came out of it was also 52mm. So it should fit straight in. It's quite a simple mounting design. It's just like the gauge I just took out basically. So you've got a bracket here, show you, bracket here like that. So you undo these knurled nuts. Okay, take that bracket off. So then you insert that from this way, make sure flat way around. So this is currently on the bench, so it's upside down. So like that. Oh yeah, slots in nice. Alright, and then I'll flip it over. Don't want to scratch it. Like that. I might use a bit of sponge that came with the gauge. Like that. Make sure it's level. Got my bracket. Place it over. Two knurled nuts. Screw them on. Okay. Tighten. Okay, sorry, not be able to see much of this. Okay, there you go. I'll probably tighten a little bit more once I'm happy with it. Oh yeah. Cool. Okay. Now get this mounted back into the Mini. There we are, chaps. Centre dial mounted with Haltech gauge. So obviously this is just a trial fit really. I'll be taking this on and off multiple times when I'm doing the wiring. But just wanted to check it out. So nice and secure. Happy with the position, looks neat. So next task, I shall be finding a location for the ECU. Okay, my initial thoughts is maybe here or against the bulkhead there. Not sure, I hope it doesn't get in the way of this air duct. So the main exit entry point for the cables going to the engine bay is behind the centre dial. There's a grommet and a cutout there. That's where the standard wiring loom is going, behind there. So I think I'm going to try and utilise the same location if possible. So ECU here, fuse box somewhere here as well, wiring going behind the centre dial and into the engine bay. Okay, I think that's the plan. So I removed this, what do you call it, bottom dash cover. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put the ECU here, should I say, here, and the fuse box to the left of it. The cable and the harness routing seems to accommodate that sort of design. So I'll come out of the ECU, pick up the fuse box, then carry on and go through the back of the bulkhead. So obviously the issue I've got here is there is no floor for it to mount to. So I would have thought there's something I could buy already from Minis for this, like a parcel shelf, but I've had a quick look and I can't seem to find out, which I'm a bit confused about. I'll keep on looking, see if I can find something, but if not, what I'm thinking I'm going to do is get some thin wood, I think, and then make myself my own little parcel shelf here, my own flat surface here, and I can use that to mount the ECU and the fuse box. So I've removed the centre dial again, and I've just made myself a little cardboard template for this parcel shelf. I did do some research on getting an actual parcel shelf, and as far as I can understand it, this sheet metal section here, you can buy that as a panel. So this is a later model Mark III Mini with these apertures here, whereas the Mark 1, Mark 2, this is all closed, and you can buy a panel that's where this is completely continues to be sheet metal, no holes. So I could have bought one of them, cut this out, welded it in, but I think this is a bit easier. Couldn't be asked to do all that. So I've got a template in cardboard here, cut it out, sits okay. So I'm going to cut this out, put this template onto some MDF, cut it out. I'll do the same on the other side, and then when I'm done, my plan is to cover this in a layer of carpet to make it look tidy. Okay, so I've cut out my template in MDF here, and I've mounted the ECU. I put on a metal backing plate here, which is screwed into the MDF, and then with the holes in the plate, I've got some riv nuts. This will allow me to easily remove the ECU from the top section if I need to. So let's just try it out. Boom. There we go. Hole cut out for the air duct, hole cut out for the clutch. I don't know, I might put a sheet metal cover around that, I'm not sure yet. Obviously when I'm done, this is going to be completely covered in car carpet to make it all tidy. So I've already started here, so I've got a hole here, another hole here I'm going to put in a minute. That's going to mount the fuse box. So I have the fuse box, ECU wiring at the back, which will go through there into the engine bay, and then I shall also cover this side here, but I'm going to use that as an actual parcel shelf. Here we go, guys. So fuse box mounted, ECU mounted, got the wiring behind it, looks nice and neat. Like I said, it's going to be covered with carpet or some other material, and the plates have been screwed down to the wood. I wish I'd countersunk them a little bit because they're protruding quite a bit. So, but I don't want to. I don't know. If I take them out and countersunk them now, it might bore a hole in the wood, and that screw will never go in again properly. So, you know, might leave it. See if I can get away with it. I think that looks pretty neat. So this keeps the ECU visible display. Sorry, keeps the ECU on display. I know a lot of people want to hide under the dash or stuff like that, but I thought I'm quite proud of the fact that it's a Haltech, and plus there's some power and status lights on the top here that might be useful just to keep visibility on at all times. Okay, next hardware I'm going to look at mounting is my wideband controller. So I've got my wideband controller here. I have wired in the O2 sensor. I have an O2 sensor just temporarily into the exhaust manifold there. So I've got an idea of cable length. I've got this cable here, which is what goes to the CAN connection onto the ECU. So looking at my intended cable routing from the O2 sensor, which is there, I think I'm going to run it under here, like some of the existing wiring does at the same thing. Under here, inside the wing, through here, there's a little aperture already for the existing wiring harness. And I think I'm going to mount the wideband controller there, like that. And then the CAN connection to the ECU can go behind the master cylinder and into the hole that's going into the cabin. So that should keep everything nice and neat and out of the way, while keeping the cables not visible. So I'm marking my position up here, drill some holes, put some riv nuts, and mount it. Cool. Wideband controller mounted. So I've drilled some holes, put some M4 riv nuts in there, and I've got some M4 Allen head bolts on there. So good position, I think. So as before, I mentioned this wiring here, which is to the O2 sensor. It'll follow the standard harness position, nice and hidden once I've done it, hopefully, under to here. And then from here, which is where I connect to the ECU, that's going to go right round here, behind the master cylinder, and then into that location. Okay, so I think that'll be it for this first part of the wiring video. So all the hardware is mounted, as you've seen: ECU, fuse box, wideband, O2 sensor, the digital gauge. So the next step is I'm going to drill the holes through there, start feeding through all the wiring from the ECU, laying all its position out, stripping the old wiring loom for all the connectors I need, and start making them connections, I think. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and catch you next time. I'll see you.